Hi YouTube, this is Raven. I'm a survivor of a 16-year marriage to a covert narcissist, and now I'm in a high conflict divorce from a covert narcissist. And a lot of times when you're in a divorce, especially from a narc, things get very serious. There are a lot of times that you just want to pull your hair out because you're so stressed. And if you don't take time out to laugh at things, laugh at yourself, laugh at other things that are going on, laugh at the ridiculous things the narc does, you'll go crazy. And I said in one of my videos, I was going to talk about the crazy things that narcs do, especially my narcissist husband and his narcissist parents. They are very serious people and very educated people. So, they don't take themselves, they take themselves very seriously. So anytime that, something happens to embarrass them, it's like the world could end, they could die. And I said I was going to do a video just to dedicate it to the things that they do, but I think I'm going to have to do several because there are so many things that my in-laws did and that he did. And one of these occasions that they did, I call it hide the stash. And it was over a summer when we were in college. And my narcissistic mother-in-law, before we were married, she was cleaning my brother-in-law's room. And by cleaning, I should mean snooping. And because she was very curious and very nosy. And she found a bag of herbs, let's put it that way. And she immediately freaked out. I was like, oh my God, he's left drugs in my house. She was so worried that his brother, the golden child, had left his stash, a pot. And so she calls my soon-to-be father-in-law, to come home because there's an emergency. And so he comes home and they wait until cover of darkness. And they go out in the backyard, so that none of the neighbors can see what they're doing. You can almost hear the Mission Impossible theme, dun 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 dun. As they're sneaking from one side of the yard to the other side of the yard, being very quiet, and they're distributing a little bit of the pot here, a little bit of the pot there, a little bit over here, just to spread it out. And my narc comes home and he sees the bag and he's like, "What are you doing?" And they said, "We're hiding your brother's pot. Your father could get fired from his job if the county commissioners found out that he had drugs in his home." Because his dad was the county manager and worked for the county commissioners. I think she was worried that the feds were going to break down the door at any minute. And my narc says, "That's not pot. That's a bag of catnip. I bought that at PetSmart the other day." And he had bought this because they had this antisocial cat. The cat wanted nothing to do with them. He didn't want to be petted, rubbed. He didn't want to play. He didn't want to sit on their laps. He just wanted to be left alone. And I figured it out now that cat was a better judge of character than I was, because I was engaged to the narc. And this cat, I think, had figured it out. It's like, these people are narcissists. They're assholes. I want nothing to do with them. Smart cat. But he had bought the bag of catnip to try and, convince the cat, to like him. And, I remember thinking, it would have been hilarious if his parents had tried to smoke, the bag of catnip. They would have been in for a rude awakening. But, it was just ridiculous that they're out there in the middle of the night, spreading around the stuff that they think is pot, And, they did a lot of other things. They drank a lot. And when they drank, they did crazy things. And, I used to say if there was an Olympics for drinking, their livers would bring home the gold medal because, they worked them out constantly. And one of the things that she did when she drank, my mother-in-law, she cooked. And she thought she was a really good cook. And, a lot of times she would be drunk when she was cooking, especially for a family event. And one time she made sauteed green beans with these black things in it. That's my rooster. Apparently he wants in on the video. And, she cooked these green beans with black things in them. And I asked her, "What are these black things?" "Those are shallots." And I remember looking at those shallots. And I'm like, those things are so badly burned. It's like, you would need dental records to identify them. But nobody was going to tell her that, it tasted horrible. And she came to my house one Christmas. And she's already drank 2 bottles of wine. Not 2 glasses, 2 bottles of wine. And, she's drunk, and she wants to make Yorkshire pudding. And I'm in the kitchen, and I never get to cook because my narc thought that he was God's gift to cooking. So I'm in the kitchen actually cooking for a change in my house. And I'm going to make Yorkshire pudding. And, she didn't know how to make it, and so she had me look it up on the internet, and I printed it up for her. And it called for 2 eggs. So she puts 2 eggs in the bowl, and she's mixing them. It's just not getting stiff enough. So then she puts the rest of the dozen eggs in, and she's blending it again. It's just not getting stiff enough. So then she puts another dozen eggs. So now we have 24 eggs in this bowl that it's now egg cement. And, she pulls the blender out. And this is when the world went into slow motion. I'm standing on the other side of the kitchen, and I can see what's about to happen. And, she has her finger poised over the button on the mixer. And I know what she was thinking. In her mind, she wanted to eject the beaters and put them in the dishwasher. But the same button that she was about to push was the one that she had been pushing, just seconds before, that was making the blender turn. So, the world goes into slow motion at this point. I'm on the other side of the kitchen, and I'm like, no, as I'm trying to stop her, because I can see what's about to happen. And, but my feet are like cemented to the floor. I can't move them, because it's like when the world slows down, you're about to like hit the car in front of you. It's like, it's like time just stands still. And, she does it. I watch in slow motion as the thumb goes down. Plop, 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 plop. An explosion of egg cement is all over my kitchen. Every surface, every flat surface was covered in it, including her. And she's standing there with this egg stuff all over her face and her clothes. Because she's drunk. And I lose it at this point. I have held it together for 14 years and not said anything to this woman. And I turn to my narc husband. I say, I'm going outside for some fresh air. When I get back in, she's not in my kitchen, and this shit is not on my counters. And to his credit, he did. He got her out of the kitchen, and he cleaned up. And I think it's because he knew at that point that World War III was about to start between his wife and his narc mother, and that put the fear of God in him for a change. And, she did a lot of other things. She didn't remember that she'd done that because she'd been drunk. But, she also, another Christmas, it was 10 o'clock in the morning. She's already drunk. And she's talking in front of my 4-year-old and my 7-year-old children about the pull-out method of birth control. And about how the sperm can still reach the egg when you're using the pull-out method. And that, you still need to use a barrier method or spermicide. And I'm like, oh my God, my 4-year-old and 7-year-old are getting an education that I don't want them to have yet. And so I'm like, get her out of here, get my kids out of here, or whatever. And of course, afterwards, she doesn't remember. It's like, oh, damn, I never said that. No, oh, you're making that up. No, I don't drink that much. Well, unfortunately, my narc husband has 50% of her DNA, her genetics. And, he does things, ridiculous things too, because he thinks the rules don't apply to him. He doesn't have to read instructions. He's smarter than everyone else. And he did something what I call the $3,000 oil change. And what he did was he announced to me, I am no longer going to take my car to the dealership to change the oil when I can change it myself. Well, he knew nothing about mechanics. He was a computer geek. He was an IT guy. But, he had convinced himself that he could change the oil in his car. So he bought all the materials that he needed to change his oil. And it was about 2 hours, and I went into the garage like, is everything okay? Everything's fine. I just finished changing the oil, and now I'm going to drive the car around the block several times to heat up the engine and the oil to distribute the oil throughout the engine. So he does that, and, I go in the garage, and I look down at this pan that supposedly has the oil he's drained from the car. And I look at it like, I didn't think oil was supposed to be red tinged. And I put my fingers in it, and it's translucent. And I'm like, I don't think oil is supposed to be red and translucent. Well, while I'm standing there, our nosy neighbor from across the street comes over because he sees that the garage door is up. He's like, what you doing? I'm like, I'm not sure. It's supposed to be an oil change. I don't know. He looks at it. Well, crap. And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, at this point, Narc pulls back up. He gets out of the car. There's something wrong with this car. I must have put the wrong type of oil in the car. I'm going to have to drain the oil and start over. And that's when our neighbor breaks the news to him. It's like, dude, you drained the transmission fluid from your car. So, this didn't faze the narc at all, that he'd been driving the car around with no transmission fluid in the transmission. So, oh, this is an easy fix. So he drains all the oil, now that he knows where the oil plug is. Drains the oil, he puts the transmission fluid back in, and then he puts the correct amount of oil in, but now it's dirty oil mixed with the clean oil. And in his mind, it's fixed. It's fine. And so the next day, I go to the mall, and he's like, "Oh, take my car." And I'm like, "Are you sure about this?" "Oh, yeah, it's fine, fine." So I take his car. I get about a half mile down the road, and I have to pull over because it won't change gears. It's making a horrible noise, and there's a smell. And I call him up like, "There's something wrong with this car. You got to come pick me up." "There's nothing wrong with this car. You just don't know how to drive the car. You need to really drive it hard so that all the fluids will be distributed properly throughout the transmission and the engine." I'm like, "Dude, there is something seriously wrong with this car." So he pulls up in my car. We switch cars. I drive off, and 5 minutes later, I get a call from him. "There's something wrong with this car." I'm like, "You think? You think there's something wrong with the car?" So, anyways, $3,000 later, we had an oil change and a new transmission. And, he does these things. He thinks that he is so smart, that he's smarter than everyone else in the room, that, he can do things without having to get instructions or to, read up on things, and, or, that, he has to be qualified in it. And the thing is that, I'm in nursing school, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not a surgeon, I'm not even a nurse yet, I'm just in school. But if someone handed me a scalpel and said, "Could you take out my appendix?" there is no universe where I would think that I was qualified or even know how to remove an appendix, and at least the patient be alive at the end of the procedure. Yet, he, for some reason, thinks that he can do car repair. And I got news for you. There are experts in that area. They're called mechanics, and he's obviously not one. But he thinks he's just as good as a mechanic. And, the sad thing is that, I think, I sit here and I laugh about the things that they do, but, kind of the last laugh is on me because I chose to have children with this person, and my kids have 50% of his DNA, so who knows what the future holds. Well, that's all for now. I'll make a second video sometime soon with other things crazy things that they did. But that's all for now. Be vigilant, be safe, laugh at the narc any chance you get because they're ridiculous. Take care. Bye.